Hey guys, Julie here. We are back for another 31 Proverbs in 31 days. You guys, let me know if this is fun, if you're learning, if this is cool. I'm having a blast. So I hope you guys are having as much fun as I am. But today is January 25th. So we are in the 25th chapter of Proverbs. And just a really quick reminder, I have a fun little contest going on. I'm going to be sending an inspired Proverbs coloring book to a lucky winner at the end of this month. I'm actually going to be doing one of the illustrations out of this coloring book today. And so you will see all the beautiful illustrations. This is the one I'm doing today. Isn't that beautiful? So once again, if you want to be eligible or entered to win a Proverbs inspired coloring book, I'll be sending somebody this exact same coloring book, entire book of Proverbs, and some beautiful illustrations. So if you want to be entered into win, just shoot me the word Proverbs, text me the word Proverbs to 406-283-4657. Once again, just text me the word Proverbs to 406-283-4657, and I'll pick a lucky winner at the end of the month. I see Bonnie's jumping on. She says, hi. Hello, my friend. So I'm super excited. When I first started brainstorming 31 Proverbs in 31 days, I want to make sure I don't knock my coffee over. That's very important. I went through this coloring book, and then I also went through my Bible, and I just looked at each chapter. So Proverbs 1, I read the whole chapter and just looked for anything that jumped out at me that had cool imagery or just a proverb that I loved. And this one is so beautiful. As soon as I saw it in the coloring book, I knew it was one that I wanted to do on here live with you guys. So I'm going to hold this up so you can see it just a little bit closer. But it says, timely advice is like golden apples in a silver basket, which in our day and age, apples in a basket is kind of a weird thing to, kind of compare something to, but it's of value. Timely advice. So if you guys are watching live or if you're jumping on and watching the replay, let me know if you've ever had advice that just came to you at the exact perfect moment. Let me get my lighting a little bit better so you guys can see what I'm doing. Hopefully that's not too weird. All right, so I'm going to jump in here. And today I'm using watercolors, and then I'm going to use some probably pens or colored pencil at the end. So I'm going to come in here. I'm just going to start painting. So like I said, if you guys are jumping on, if you're watching live, or even if you are watching the replay, let me know. Have you ever had advice that like just came at the perfect time? You're like, I needed to hear that. I'm trying to decide. Picking my colors is sometimes the hardest part. I'm like, what color do I want? I think I'm going to do yellow. Yellow is a happy cheer color. I see Alicia. Alicia says, please share the number again. Oh, thank you, Alicia. I'm so glad that you're enjoying this. So I'm going to put it right there. So just shoot me a text. It's 406-283-4657. And that just comes to me. It doesn't go anywhere. You're not going to get any weird like advertisements. It just comes directly to me. And that way I can pick a winner on January 31st. Candy's jumping on. Bonnie says, I sure have. I know that there's times when I just get a piece of advice and it's exactly what I needed to hear that day or at that moment or for that situation. And then there's also times when I will get advice and maybe in the moment I'm like, okay, that's cool, like whatever. And ooh, I almost dumped my paintbrush in my coffee. Did you guys catch that? I went burp and then stopped myself. Oh my gosh, I would have cried. Have you ever done that? Have you ever used your paint water and accidentally dunked your brush in it, or drank your paint water, done something silly? I haven't. I almost just did it right in front of you all. Sorry, tangent. But sometimes you hear somebody say something and maybe it just doesn't resonate with you in that moment, but then down the line you're like, oh, now I understand. Now it makes sense. So advice, sometimes it's things we don't want to hear. Maybe it's something we need to work on and we're like, I don't know if I like you that advice. But there's something to be said about good and timely advice. And so just real quick, I'm just doing a real quick wash of yellow acrylic paint or watercolor paint. And a wash is just a real thin, almost kind of like a glaze. So I'm just kind of coming in here and I'm painting over the writing. I'm painting over some of the illustration. I'm going to leave these apples white so that way I can come in and paint them a nice vibrant color. I think I'm going to paint them like a vibrant red. And I just am worried because if I have yellow and then red on top of it, it might look kind of orangey. So I'm just kind of being mindful of the colors. I have a bunch of friends watching today. Patty says, hello, my friend. Glad to see you on. I'm so glad to be here. I almost just rinsed my brush off in my coffee. That is a big no-no. But anyway, so like I said, I'm just kind of coming in here and doing a real quick, thin layer of watercolor. I have a lot of water and just a little bit of paint, just so it kind of gives a nice, pretty background. So just kind of showing what I've got going on. And like I said, this is just a real fun, hang on a second. Okay, I had to make sure my blow dryer was plugged in. Really beautiful illustration that's in this coloring book. And I say coloring book, but it's so much more than just a coloring book. It's the entire book of Proverbs that has these beautiful, beautiful illustrations. And like I said, I just thought this one was so pretty, but timely advice is lovely, like golden apples in a silver basket. And once again, golden apples in a silver basket sounds kind of an odd thing to hold in value, but it's just saying that timely advice, good sound advice, it's valuable, it's important. And like I said, sometimes we get that advice and we're like, I don't really think I want to hear that, because sometimes advice can sound, like you're not doing it. You like, try this. Depends on who it's coming from and the tone. But truly, when we think of advice as being valuable, as being important, as being something we should kind of look for in life, but make sure it's good advice, because everybody has an opinion. Everybody has, what you should do. Oh, please tell me. So be mindful on where you're getting your advice from. But this life is hard and things change, and more times than not, somebody else has walked that same path, that same road ahead of you, and might give you some insight. Maybe it's on the flip side. Maybe instead of receiving timely advice, you can give timely advice. Maybe you've been in a certain circumstance or certain situation, and you see somebody going down that exact same road, and you're like, hey, let me just give you a little, free advice. If you raise kids, you've probably done that. You see them doing something, you're like, maybe let's rethink this trajectory. But it's so important. And we, as much as we think we are on an island by ourselves, this journey of life we do with a group of people, family, friends, maybe friends we meet online, like all of you have come into my life. I have to tell you, art has brought some of the most amazing, sweet, generous people into my life. And some of you guys I have met face to face. Maybe you've painted with me before, but some of you guys maybe just jump on my lives or send me a text or just send me an email, and I love it. So once again, I'm kind of going on a tangent, but I have met some of the most amazing, sweet people through art. And like I said, sometimes that advice on tough situations, like I said, if you've raised a kid, or if you're raising a kid, you probably understand that. So I did my roses. I have 4 sets of roses, and I did them in a pretty pink color. And I want to do these apples like a bright, vibrant red. So I have, this is almost like an orangey red, but with watercolor, just a little watercolor advice, if you will, is whenever you paint with watercolor, when you first put that color down and it's still wet, the colors are going to be a lot more vibrant than when it dries. So, you may see this like bright, bold red and go, whoa, that's a lot. Let it dry, and it will probably tone down a little bit. On the flip side of that, if you're painting and it's nice and vibrant and beautiful, and then you it dries and it's a little more muted, or not as vivacious, boom, as you would like, you can always add a second layer. So once again, I'm coming in here with this bright, almost like a school bus red, and I want it to stand out. I want it to pop. And so as this dries, I may decide to do a second layer of paint just because I love how vibrant that looks. So when you are using watercolors, which is what I'm using for this beautiful entry, like I said, it's going to go on and be nice and bold and vibrant, but as it dries, it may be a little more muted, a little softer. Patty, thank you for putting that as. Julie is on page 53 of the Inspired Proverbs. Yes, thank you for that. You're good. I'm like, I didn't even know what page I was on. So this has been such a fun, like I said, I say coloring book, but it's so much more. I wish I could have a fancier title than coloring book, but illustrative, no, I don't know. But there are just some beautiful images in here. And one thing that I have been asked, and also that I've been mindful about in doing these Bible journaling entries, is where do you get your inspiration? How do you pick your designs? Or how do you know what to paint? And there's a couple, it's a layered answer. Gail says, hello from Oklahoma. Well, hello from Missoula, Montana. We have some snow on the ground, and I got my heater going, and I got my warm coffee right there. But when it comes to inspiration, first and foremost, if you're of the pray and persuasion, pray for inspiration. Say, God, I want to spend time with you in my Bible, in my coloring book today. Give me some inspiration. Give me some good ideas. Real quick, I want to show off this mug. Isn't that beautiful? This is a glass mug that a friend of mine gave me years ago, and it has held up so well, and it's one of my absolute favorite. She actually gave this to me back when I lived in California. Maybe it was God kind of foreshadowing my move to the mountains and the forest, but that's one of my favorite little mugs that I have. If you guys like artistic inspiration, that's actually for my friend Wendy Rogers, and it's Fiddletown Studios. I'll go back and find her link and link it in here, but she's an amazing, absolutely beautiful watercolorist and a pretty awesome person. She's a good friend of mine too. So there we go. That was a little tangent. But when it comes to picking designs to paint in your Bible, or if you once again are doing this in just an art journal or a hymn or any other kind of book, first off, pray for inspiration. And then second off, just start looking. So this coloring book has been a lot of fun for me to see, like, what illustration did they use for that proverb, to get some idea. Sometimes they're just so beautiful, I want to share them directly out of this book. But like I said, when I'm looking for something to Bible journal, a verse, I look for something that speaks to me. And even if it's just a beautiful verse that resonates with you, you could just paint pretty flowers, you could paint hearts, you could just paint a really pretty background. Like I've said before, the end goal, yes, we all want to have, we set out to create something and we want it to look nice. But the end goal is just to spend time with your creator, creating with your creator. But this book has been so fun because, like I said, it's just insanely beautifully illustrated. So I sometimes find inspiration in this book and similar other books. There's a lot of Bible coloring books or Bible journaling resources. So just start, getting a little creative and start being inspired by what's around you. I actually, here in Missoula, we have a new library. They built it and had to move from the old facility to the new facility in the middle of the pandemic. And so we haven't been down there in a few years. And then we were in town the other day and had some extra time. And so we're like, hey, let's go check out the new library. And so guess where the very first place I went was? To the art section. And I pulled out some watercolor books, because I've watercolored a little bit, but not nearly as much as I painted like an acrylic, or I like to draw a lot, and I'll use pastels and pencil and pen and ink. So watercolor for me is something that maybe I don't have as much experience with as other forms of art, other mediums. And so sometimes I'm like, okay, am I doing this right? How do I get that look? And so the very first section I went to was the art section in the library. And I checked out some really fun, beautiful books on watercolor. So when it comes to getting inspiration, just whatever resonates with you, whether it's a beautiful card, a calendar, maybe you heard a beautiful song in church or on the radio and that inspired you. And in that song they sing about, something, and that, like I said, gave you the inspiration. I know this is going to shock a lot of you. Most of the time when God talks to me, it's through visual things. So sometimes I'll be praying and maybe I'll kind of see something in my mind's eye, or I'll just kind of be, like I said, sometimes I just get inspiration. And, let's say you are inspired by a lighthouse. You can go and look for all different images, and find something that resonates with you. And then that's your inspiration. So it kind of goes in twofold. Maybe I'll see something. I might see a beautiful picture and I'm like, oh, I want to paint that or draw that or color that. And so then I'll go and find a corresponding scripture. Or on the flip side, maybe I have a beautiful scripture and then I'm like, I don't know what imagery or what I want to create to go around that scripture. So then once again, I'll pray about it and then just start looking for things that get me excited, that inspire me, kind of, makes me talk a little faster. I try really hard to talk slow to make my point, but when I get passionate about something, I'm like, yay! Maybe I should switch to decaf. I don't know. But anyway, so I'm just coming in here and I'm doing these bright green leaves. So they'll be on the apple, but then also on the leaves of the roses. One thing that I'm thinking about when I'm picking colors is I try and always use colors in more than one space in my painting. So like this bright red, I might incorporate that in some of the lettering or in some of the decorations down here. This beautiful pink, I might once again kind of pick other places to use that same color. So when you're doing whatever, if it's drawing or coloring or sketching, if you are using colors, try and pick at least one other spot to use that same color. Alrighty, so if you guys have been following along, let me know if there's any of the Bible journaling, the Proverbs. Let me know if there's anyone that's like stuck out or one that you've really enjoyed. I have my favorites. There's not been one that I haven't had fun creating, but I definitely have ones that are a little more, like I said, they make me talk fast. It kind of resonates with me. And so if there's any that you have seen me do, let me know if you have any favorites, if you have any that you liked watching me do, any ones that maybe spoke to you. Petty says, good advice on using color. That's, I can use big fancy terms, but it makes it more harmonious, which sounds silly, but it just means it kind of goes together. So somebody said hello, ... and all I see is Facebook user. So I'm sorry, I don't know who said hello to me, but whoever you are, hello back. I am using a software called StreamYard, and it's really cool because it means that I can go live in multiple places at the same time. So sometimes when they come in, when your comments come in, I just see hello Facebook user. Sarah said, love that angel. Me too. That was one of my favorites. I don't have it close by. And I'm actually working on another angel design. I had a friend of mine reach out to me and she kind of had a great idea. And she said, I know you do angels. Can you help me kind of flesh out this idea? And so I'm going to be working on that this afternoon. I do love painting angels. All right. So we put a little bit of yellow in the inside of the, apples. I'm going to go ahead. Remember how I told you I'm going to do 2 layers. This red actually is very nice and vibrant, so I may not need another layer, but why not? Gild the lily, as they say. So one of my favorite ones that I did was the mountain, and that had the sun and then the blue. It was very illustrator, heavy lines. That was a really fun one that I enjoyed doing. Then I also did one live not that long ago that was the fish. It was like the underground ocean scene. And then I painted my little Finding Nemo orange fish. All right, so we got that. I'm trying to figure out what color I should do this little filigree. I do know that for my clock, I'm going to use a dark gray. And I don't know if you guys, oh, Patty says, I liked the cow. Very impressive. Thank you. The cow was funny because I shared a goofy story with it along. So if you guys have heard me talk about the watercolors that I'm using, these are not fancy. These are honestly the generic brand from Michaels. They're not like super, super expensive watercolor, but I like the two different sets because this one has a matte finish, which just means it dries not very shiny. And then these ones are pearl, so they're kind of shimmery. So anytime I want something to look metallic or shimmery or shiny, I can use that other set of watercolors. So I'm going to use some dark gray and go around my alarm clock. But I'm going to go over it with the shimmery gray at the end because I want this to look metallic. And so what I'm doing, this kind of style that I'm doing, is I'm going in with watercolor first, and I'm not real particular about every little detail, almost just kind of color blocking. So I'm coming in here and painting, if it's silver or gray, I'm painting that color, but I'm not, you can see, even look at the flowers that I did. They're not detailed. I just kind of blobbed on some color. What I'm going to do is come back with a pen and outline, go over that outline, and that's going to make everything crisp. So just what this step that I'm doing right now, I'm not really, I mean, I kind of stay in the lines, but even if it's not 100%, don't stress about it. Remember, the whole purpose of doing this is spending time creating with your creator. There's actually a great book by that same name. Sarah says, oh my gosh, now that you say that, I love the painting of water you did. I'm going to watch that before the day is over. Wonderful, Sarah. I love that. I love imagery. I love like wording that's almost like poetry. And sometimes in, especially in Proverbs and Psalms, and sometimes in like Genesis, the creation story, or when they talk about God, you know, being like the ocean or the waters, like to me, like it makes me excited because I love just that extra layer of like relating to God and his vastness, like the depths of the ocean, or his faithfulness as deep as as the ocean. So I love that. Or it can also be the storms in our life, and God is our safe refuge from the, you know, the waves splashing over us. And I don't know about you guys, but I've definitely had seasons in my life where I just feel like it's wave after wave after wave, and I'm like, ah. So I love those beautiful images. And then once again, when you spend some time in God's word, kind of meditating on those words and those images, it just makes it more alive to me. I'm kind of going off on a tangent. Um, so I think what I might do, once again, kind of going with that same idea of tying colors around, I think I might make this little filigree down here like a silver. So I'm going to jump and start using this silver. Sarah says, I agree with everything you're saying. I can totally relate. Yeah, good. Sometimes my little weird artistic brain, God bless my husband, he puts up with quite a bit. But sometimes I might be trying to explain something and he's like, I'm like, never mind. I love you for putting up with me, but my art friends, they get me a little bit better. Y'all understand what I mean. But and I think it's so wonderful because God can speak to us all in different ways. For me, I love the visual. I love those things when I hear, scriptures in the Bible or Bible stories, when it talks about how things are described and the way things look. That to me is exciting. But for somebody else, maybe they're like, okay, well, I relate more to something else. So God can speak to all of us in our own, maybe dialect is a good way to put it. I am definitely the artistic dialect, and he lavishes me with beautiful words and images. Sarah says, you can totally go off on a tangent. We don't mind. Thank you. I can. Usually I can loop it back. But yeah, God bless my husband, my parents, anybody that's had to deal with me, because I know I can be extra. Have you guys heard that term? You're a little extra, aren't you? Why, yes, I am. And that's the way God made me, and I'm not going to apologize for it. But sometimes I do have to turn it down a little bit. All right, just going around this clock. And it's hard for you guys to see because I know my camera's up a little bit. But I'll zoom this in so you guys can see it in a little bit. But I'm just, like I said, going over this with the silver. But this scripture spoke to me. Like I said, it just was so beautiful because, we are always, at least for me, always going, I want to know what God's, plan is for my life. I don't know if I'm where I'm supposed to be. There's all these questions in my mind, am I working out my purpose? Am I sharing what I need to share? Am I listening when I need to listen? And so I love that this says timely advice is lovely like golden apples in a silver basket. And even though that's kind of you're not going to have somebody say, "Oh, your car, it's so lovely. It's as lovely as golden apples in a silver basket." That's a weird, thing to say in our day and age. But it just is, speaking to the value. If I said timely advice is as valuable as, the newest iPhone or whatever, or a smart TV, maybe in our day and age we'd be like, oh yeah, that is pretty valuable. But just reminding us that, have those people that can speak into your life, and also be one of those people that you can speak into people's lives. I'm only going to go and ask for advice from somebody that I respect, somebody that I know has my best interest at heart. And I am so, so blessed because I have a lot of those people in my life that I can say, hey, I need some advice. And I also have people in my life that even if I don't necessarily ask for advice, how many of y'all, you're like, okay, I didn't ask for your opinion. Why are you giving me your opinion? But when we think of it in this context, sometimes we need to, as the kids say, take a chill pill, and realize that advice is so, so valuable. Maybe that person sees something down the road that we don't see from our perspective, or maybe that person has walked that path before, and they can say, hey, just be careful of this snare, that snag, or whatever. So once again, just to be mindful and know that there is so much value in good, I think maybe this should say good advice, good timely advice, because we can all have, advice that you're like, thanks, but no thanks. Discernment is, I think, important too. So I'm going to let this dry real quick, and then I'm going to start using some pens to go over an outline. Now, when it comes to using pens, or markers, I do want to kind of give you some timely advice. If this is something that you're wanting to either start doing Bible journaling, or maybe you have been Bible journaling, anytime you try new pens, new paint, pretty much anything, I would always recommend finding a spot like in the back and testing them out. Like, find a little place where you don't mind if the page gets a little goofy. Because there's what is called bleed through, and that's exactly what it means. It means that the colors will bleed through to the other page. So just to be mindful, once again, if you're using pens or markers or paint, do a little test and just see if that is going to bleed through to the other side. I'll give you a quick example. So when I first got this book, I was so excited, and I did this illustration, and it turned out so beautifully. But when I was going over the lettering, I went over it 2 or 3 times with a pen that kind of bled through. And so what happened was, on the flip side of that, can you see where the black kind of poked through? Like right here and right here. That's called bleed through or ghosting. And what I decided to do is I kind of did this pretty background color, and then I'm going to go in and paint this or use pens on it. But there was that bleed through, but I didn't go, oh, I just wrecked my whole book. I went, hey, you know what? I can work with that. We can rework it. So whenever you are doing this style of art in a book or in a journal or in a hymn, I do want to give you guys a little bit of little timely advice. Just always do a test just to make sure you don't get that bleed through. And if it doesn't bother you, then just leave it. But if it does bother you, then there's a couple things that you could do. They call it page prep, and I can do a whole other kind of talk on that. I'm not going to get too much into that, but I did want to give you guys, like I said, that little bit of advice just to see if you have any bleed through, because I'd hate for you to send me a message and be like, Julie, I did this page and now the other page behind it's totally wrecked. But I'm coming in here, and I have actually 2 different sizes of markers. These are nothing fancy. I think these are actually Michael's and Dollar Tree.
So once again, they're not anything super, super expensive. I'm just using what I have, but I have some markers that have just a little thicker tip on them. So for these thicker letters, this is just a little bit quicker. And then I have some thinner ones. See how that's super, super thin tipped, felt tipped pen. And so for some of the smaller details, I'm going to use those just so you guys have an idea of what I'm doing. Now, could you do this with colored pencil? Could you do this with watercolor pencils? Could you do this with paint and just a super tiny brush? Yes, yes, and yes. But I don't think you guys want to see me do this page for 5 hours and come back at 2 a.m. and I'm still doing my little tiny details. So I'm just using some of these bigger markers to do some of the larger letters. So if you guys are watching live, or even if you're watching the replay, let me know how your January's going. How 2020's treating you so far. I was super busy with paint parties in December. And so for January, I'm like, I just want to spend some quality time in my Bible, kind of rebalance. You know, life sometimes gets super busy and we just kind of need sometimes to take a little break and rebalance, reconnect, reground. And so for me, that was kind of what January has been. And so honestly, that's why I've loved doing this and sharing this with you, because for me, this is part of my process of regrounding, recentering, refocusing. Sarah says, I'm all ears on the pen, looking for pens or markers that are not water soluble, that bleed if you get them wet. Yes, that is very, very important. Do you do pens as the last step? What is your preferred, or yeah, white and black pen, or you already did a video on this? Okay, no, so I'll share this real quick. These are just felt pens. These are nothing fancy. They're Surgent, which I believe is Michael's. It's either Michael's or Walmart, maybe. They're not expensive, but these are just classic brush tip markers. These are nothing fancy. And like I said, always do a little test to see if there's bleed through. I know these won't bleed through, so that's why I'm not worried about it. These are just felt tipped pens, and these are Michael's because I can see that little Artist Loft, that's their brand, but you can get these in a ton of places. Honestly, I always tell people, raid your kids' art stash. You know, see what's in there, and then borrow them. So when it comes to pens, like I said, just use whatever works best for you and do a little test in your Bible, because different books have different thicknesses of pages. And so maybe on mine there's no bleed through, and maybe on yours there would be, or vice versa. I might have something that's a little thinner and I get bleed through, and you might not have any problem with it. That was also one of the reasons why I love this Inspired Proverbs coloring book, is because the pages, it's almost like cardstock. It's pretty thick quality pages. And so it stands up to a lot of different mediums. And so that was the reason why I picked that one. What else did you say? Do you do pens as a last step? Yes. So I do the watercolor first, and then I go in and I do the pens, especially if I'm outlining anything or doing any details. Mainly for the fact of, once again, like you said, if it's not water soluble, they can bleed and move. So just be mindful. And if, when in doubt, test it out. You know, always do that little test in the back. Patty says, just gifted Waterford High School 3 bulletin boards. That is so awesome. Patty, if you guys don't know, is one of my awesome friends on here. She's actually from California. Too bad we didn't meet up when I used to live out there, but we will someday soon. But she does her bulletin boards for her local high school, and she makes these beautiful sashes for their prom queen and king, and just does some amazing things for her community, and you know, shares love and shares the love of art with those kids. You know, they walk through those hallways and probably see her beautiful, I don't want to say decoration, because it's so much more than that. You're truly putting your heart into it. And I know she's done bulletin boards that go towards, you know, like anti-bullying and that kind of stuff. So little shout out to Patty. You are truly using art to inspire, to share love, and make the world a more beautiful and colorful place. All right, let me grab another swig of coffee. All right, so those are kind of the larger words. I think I might do Silver Basket in the same green. You know, so this is kind of a silly story for me to share. I've always been artistic but it hasn't always been something that's been active in my daily life. So my story is I was the kid that scribbled and colored on everything. When you would ask me anytime growing up, what do you want to be when you grow up? I'd always say an artist. Like it just was part of my DNA. One of my jokes, I don't know if you guys can see, but I have a ton of freckles. And I'm like, just like I can't control having freckles on my cheeks, I can't control loving art. And so I was an art major in college. Like it was something that just was always a part of me. And like a lot of us after after school was actually it was during my when I was going to school, I got a job where I was making really good money. I was in my early 20s and thought I had to be professional and an adult and be professional. And so I actually stopped creating art. I put all my art supplies away, kind of tucked them in the closet, and I actually stopped being creative for about 10 years. Like I said, I was adulting, I was pretending to be an adult. Um, and so for me, art was always in my life, but it kind of took a back seat. And then life happened. Some tough things happened in life, and I won't get into all that, but life kind of took a dump on me in a few different areas. And so for me, I just, and I am prone to panic attacks and anxiety. And my husband knew that about me, and he said, "Honey, you got to do something with this nervous energy of yours." And he knew that I've always loved to create. And he's like, "Why don't you just find an art class and just for some art therapy and for yourself, start creating again?" So little shout out to my husband. Good advice on his part. Once again, timely advice. It was what I needed to hear at that time. And so I took it was actually a portraiture class. Which is funny because I was never good at portraits. Like that was the one thing I'm like, nope, let's do something else. Let's do a sunset or something. And so I signed up for this class and completely fell back in love with art again. So I did go through quite a phase where I didn't create anything. I was kind of stagnant and kind of start, like I said, I took that class. I say night class, but it was just a private class that was offered in a local art studio, and kind of fell back in love with creating again. And I have always been, my faith is not, I haven't always walked my faith the way I want to, but for the most of my life, I've been a churchgoer, I've been a Bible reader, I've been of the praying persuasion, we'll say. And I knew that God gave me this talent, this artistic talent. And that doesn't mean that I'm good. I think if you're a creator, if you have the desire to create, doesn't make you good. So I've refined my craft. I've taken lots of classes, lots of lessons. I love to learn. I'm a perpetual learner. And so all that to say, I remember I don't even remember where I was or what I was doing, but I remember I was in the zone. I was praying, I was meditating, I was in God's presence, we'll say. And I was so thankful for this gift that I have been given with creating. And I just said, God, I don't know how, but I want to use this for your glory. And that's a Bible term just for saying, I want to thank God for giving me this gift by sharing it with others. But I'm like, how am I going to use art to like glorify God or give back? And so I remember having that thought in my head. Have you ever had a thought in your head and then you like look back and you're like, oh my gosh, that was so silly to even think that? And that was one of those moments for me. Sorry, I'm kind of thinking and planning this out. Let me see if this pen is very good. And so for me, I remember praying. And so I went up to the children's ministry leader at our church at the time, and I said, "Hey, I'm like, just if you ever have anything you ever need artistic, let me know." And I was expecting her to go, "Okay," and then never like bring it up again. And as soon as I said that, she went, "Oh, I know the perfect thing you can do." And I'm like, "Uh-oh, what did I sign myself up for?" But when you put yourself out there and you say, "God, use me to in whatever capacity will bring you the most glory." And she's like, "Our nursery, is plain. There was nothing on the walls." And she goes, "I would love for there to be something on the walls for the babies to look at." And so, I'm gonna share the story, but please don't do what I did. I actually took images from Winnie the Pooh, which I know is trademarked and all that stuff. So I painted a trademark design. I'm sorry. you know, don't do what I did. Not that it's a big deal, but I'm very cautious about reproducing trademark images. But all that to say, I painted some scenes from Winnie the Pooh. There was Winnie the Pooh and Piglet and Eeyore, and I did like a little honey pot. But I just did these little mini murals, just little tiny paintings on the wall. And it just made my heart so happy because she came up to me, the children's ministry leader. Her name was Carol, is Carol. And she's like, the babies love looking at your paintings. Whenever there was a baby that would get fussy or that was crying, the helpers, the volunteers would take the baby over to, Piglet and say, who's that? And start getting them thinking about something else, I guess. I don't want to say distracting, but if you've been around kids, you know that one of the best tools is redirecting their energy. And so it just made me so happy that because I said, God, I want to use this gift that you've given me in some capacity to say thank you. And I'm like, I don't think that that's, how would my art ever be used to, I was thinking maybe God would have me like paint a backdrop for, an Easter play, or I didn't know where it was going. But that little mural, whenever it pops up in my Facebook memories, I just laugh and smile on the inside because I remember thinking, I don't know, God can't use this goofy talent that I have. And then fast forward, now I do Bible journaling with you guys. I've met some amazing people. I've gone to women's retreats and been able to do, art lessons with women. I once a month go down to our local adult and teen challenge, which is women in recovery. And I do art crafts we actually have done some really cool things. Those ladies are super, super talented. They have no experience. They didn't go to art school like I did. And I'm like, how did you create that beautiful painting or picture or whatever they did? But God has opened up so many amazing doors. And the only reason why he did was because I said, I'm willing. Here I am, use me. However, whatever doors you want to open, please. Like I'm a willing participant. And art has brought some of the most amazing people, amazing situations, amazing blessings into my life. I'm kind of going on a tangent. Thank you. Who was it that was joking about that? Sarah. I hopefully you can keep up with my weird tangent. But all that to say, back to Patty and how she does those beautiful bulletin boards. Patty, if you're still watching, let me know if you've ever thought this. Do you ever go, nobody's going to see these. Nobody's going to pay attention to these. Nobody's going to be, you have all the wonderful ideas and intention, and how is God going to use this? And then like maybe a student comes up to you and just says, I saw your bulletin board display and it made me smile. It made me feel a value. It made me feel, whatever. So hopefully, Patty, if you're on here, let me know if you've ever had that experience. Okay. Changing gears, going back to actually painting on here. One other thing you need to be mindful of is your pens. So these are some, once again, making sure they're waterproof or not water soluble, which just means that they'll dissolve in water. These are some great ones that I have found. Let me see if I can get it on there for you. See, FUDENSUKE. I do not know how to pronounce that, but the brand is Tombow. And then that, however you pronounce that, you can get these anywhere. They're super popular, but these by far have been my favorite pens. Now, does that mean you have to use those? No. I often will use just this simple pen that I got from Dollar Tree. The main thing you want to make sure is just that it doesn't bleed through your pages. And also that if you did go back in with some like watercolor, it's not going to smear everywhere. So I'm going to start doing my outline on these. And like I said, if you're doing this, you don't have to outline everything. I may outline some of this and then come back later and do more details, because if not, I'd be on here all day long and you guys got stuff you got to do. But I'm just going to come in here and start outlining some of the main elements in this picture. But all that to say, art for me, like I said, it's been a tool for my own mental health wellness. Like I said, whenever I am dealing with anxiety or panic attacks, art has always been my safe space to come back to. But honestly, also art is, okay, I'm going to say something. You guys probably aren't going to believe me. There are times when I'm speechless. There are times when I don't have words. Most of the time I have more than enough words, but every once in a while, like I just, sometimes there's a blessing that I'm just like, God, you are so amazing. Like I can't even articulate in words how wonderful you are, how much you love me or love, people in my life or whatever. And so there's those times of either if I have a heavy heart or if my heart's just bursting and I don't have the words to even articulate what I want to say. To me, that's where art comes in, because I almost say that it's almost like praying without words. Um, Sorry, I'm doing the details here. I want to make sure I don't get them messed up. Sarah said, "No, I love your tangent. It definitely got mine and my daughter's ear. And speaking to our hearts about things we've talked to our church about doing with our community." I love that. Like I said, art, especially for youth, if you have a heart for working with teenagers, with kids, there's so much value in art. And like I used to think like I'm just this spooky goofy art girl, and I talk too fast, and I get way excited about things that most people don't get excited about, like pens or paint. But it resonates with a lot of people. And so if this is something you enjoy and you have a heart for giving back, find a like local youth group, find an after school program, find maybe if there's a nursing home in your area. I have a heart for the homeless community and women going, or people, but mainly the teen challenge is women. So people that are going through recovery, because I know the value of what creating can do for the soul and the mind. Yes, we all want to have a pretty picture that looks, exactly like we want have in our mind when we start. But at the end of the day, it's the process. It's spending time with God. It's quieting your mind. It's praying without words. It's all of those things. Patty says they don't know who does the bulletin boards. The kids think someone from high school, but when I come into the office to tell them I'm here to do the bulletin board, the kids are amazed. Isn't that wonderful? And it's not credit for you, Patty. You are an amazing person, and I will sing your praises and how awesome and amazing you are. But it's not to get credit for ourselves. It's to share that love. It's to spread that love, that encouragement, that inspiration. Because man, our world needs as much as we can put out there. So I want to celebrate you, my friend, because I know you just bless their socks off. Patty says, I just want the students and parents could see something pretty. I think they see more than something pretty. I think that I think it touches their soul. I think a part of that just resonates, and maybe they keep that beautiful image or the decoration or whatever you put in your bulletin boards. I think that they just kind of hold that close to their hearts. Madeline says, beautiful artwork, great message, Julie. Well, thank you. I feel like I'm just rambling. So I'm glad some of what I'm talking about is actually making some sense. Because like I said, guys, art has been such a big part of my life. And I know it's not everybody's cup of tea. I was joking about this with somebody the other day. For Christmas, as a family, we got a family gift of a puzzle. And as soon as my husband opened it up, I'm like, have fun. Here you go. Because for me, a puzzle is a source of stress. It's a source of like anxiety. Like that's just not my cup of tea. Not to say the puzzles are bad, but that's just not what gets my heart going. For me, it's art. And I also know on the flip side, there's some people that as soon as I start talking about art, they're like, wah, wah, good for you. So I'm not expecting everybody to be as excited about art and creating as I am. But I truly feel that there's a part of our soul that is nurtured, that kind of comes alive when we create. And yes, it's important. We all want the pretty picture at the end of the day, but that's not where the value lies. The value lies in the creating and spending time with your creator. And that it's almost a form of like worship, I think. And it's been such a big part of my life and my spiritual journey. And if I can share that with somebody and inspire somebody, then that's icing on the cake. Sarah says, my daughter is 19, has a strong love for God, and she is in the autistic spectrum. So it's often hard for her to find the right group. We've talked with our pastor about creating a young adult group. I think Bible study, art journaling would be perfect. I do too, Sarah. That is awesome. If you have questions, or if you don't quite know how to do a lesson, reach out to me. I have done Bible journaling workshops and art lessons with a couple different groups. And actually one of them, like I said, it's the ladies and adult and teen challenge that are going through recovery. And so if you have any questions or want to pick my brain, feel free, just reach out to me. I think that that is wonderful.
And I think that that is so wonderful that your daughter loves God as much as she does.
I have always, I was raised in church. My family is great examples of living a godly life, but like most, or some, I should say, I haven't always walked the walk or talked the talk. So I think it's wonderful that she has a love for God and a love for art. Two of my favorite things. Patty says, "Oh yes, puzzles make me straight." Girl, me too. There's some people that they're like, "Oh, there's nothing better than snuggling up in front of a fire and doing 1,000 piece puzzle." And I'm like, not for me. I'll go to my art supplies. But on the flip side of that, there's some people that sitting down and doing this would cause them that same anxiety. So I understand we're all created uniquely and differently. So it's not a one size fits all. And I don't expect everybody to be as jazzed and as enthusiastic about art and creating as I am. But if it is your favorite flavor of ice cream, like it is mine, we're best friends. All right. And I'm just coming in here and kind of doing a shadow on this lettering. The cool thing about this book is it already has this kind of shadow on the original outline. So I'm not outlining the entire letter. I'm just kind of coming in and doing like a shadow line. And it just makes these letters pop so much. I don't know if you guys can see. I'll bring it up closer in just a minute so you can see. But I'm not going over every single line. I'm just adding this kind of like shadow line, if you will, just to kind of outline and make those pop. I don't know if you guys can see, but see how that black line is just kind of on the underside and the right side of the letters. So it's not the entire outline. All right. I think just for time's sake, I'll probably do the outline of the roses off camera, because that's probably going to take me about another 20 to 30 minutes, just because there's a lot of details. But I will do the apples, and then I'm going to jump off here because I know you guys got a lot of stuff to do today, and I know you'd love to sit here and watch me paint and ramble about nonsense all day long, but we got stuff to do. So I will do some outlining, and then I will jump off this live, and then later this afternoon I'll post a final picture. But once again, guys, just real quick, if you haven't texted me, text the word Proverbs to 406-283-4657. 406-283-4657. Just text the word Proverbs, and I'll pick a lucky winner at the end of the month, and I'm going to send this exact coloring book that I'm using right now. It's not going to be the one that I colored in. It's going to be, you're going to do all the beautiful artwork yourself. But when I found this, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so fun. And I love sharing, and I love surprising you guys. And so if you want to be entered in that drawing, just send me a text. And it doesn't go anywhere. It just comes directly to me. I usually use that texting list for letting you guys know when I go live, letting you know if I am doing anything cool or fun. And also, I ask you guys for inspiration. The other day, I kind of was stuck, and I'm like, I need some good Christian music. So I sent out a text. I'm like, hey guys, I need inspiration. What is your favorite Christian, either song or artist or group? And you guys gave me some great ideas. And so I've been re-inspired and listening to some of those great ideas. So I use that to let you guys know when I'm doing something new and cool. But I also go, hey guys, I'm kind of in this mental funk. Help me. give me some inspiration. And you guys are awesome for that. Sarah says, I do. It's been years since I taught a Sunday school or VBS. I will reach out to you. I'm so glad I caught you today. I'm so glad too. I'm a firm believer there's no accidents. And so it was meant to be. And I love sharing and inspiring. And I'll tell you, Sarah, if I don't know an answer, I'll just say, I don't know. But I can give you any tips or tricks or anything that has worked well for me. My coffee level is getting low. Need to So we are in Montana. And as you can imagine, we have cold winters. And so usually during the week, it's just my husband and I. And usually like one pot of coffee will get us through the morning. When it's cold like this, we're usually like a two pot of coffee family. And so I'm already working on my second pot of coffee. And you wonder why I talk so fast. It's probably because of that. Just kidding. I kind of joke sometimes. People will be like, do you want another cup of coffee? And I'm like, if I have any more, I think people might wonder if I do street drugs. So let's not. All right, guys, like I said, I'm going to continue to work on some of the finer details, the kind of nitty gritty, but I wanted to share this with you. I have had so much fun painting and coloring. But once again, today is Proverbs 25:11. Timely advice is lovely like golden apples in a silver basket. So if you're needing some good advice, pray for God to either give you that inspiration or bring the right person to speak into your heart, or maybe you are the person that's supposed to give that timely advice. Patty says, great job. Thank you for sharing your story. I am so glad. But once again, I'm going to jump off here and probably get some more coffee. I shouldn't be. All my lines are going to be like this for the rest of the day. But once again, guys, I hope you have had a ton of fun watching me do 31 Proverbs in 31 days. Today's the 25th. We're in the home stretch. Some of my favorite ones are at the end, so I'm going to be sharing some really great ones. If you haven't had a chance to catch all of these, don't stress about it. I have a playlist on my YouTube channel, and every day when I post a new video, I upload it to there. So if you want it anytime, you could always go back and watch any of these. Sarah, I love that. Coffee, paint, and then a goofy face. That is me. Okay, let me do my best at. All right, guys, I'm losing my sanity here. I'm gonna get going. But I hope you guys all have a wonderful, wonderful Tuesday. And like I said, I have some really fun, exciting Proverbs to be painting with you over the next couple of days. And don't forget, I have a feeling my lucky winner is on this live. So if you're watching, make sure you text me inspired or Proverbs, and I will pick a winner at the end of the month. Once again, hope you guys have a great, great rest of your day, rest of your week, and we'll talk to you soon.